To introduce Dr. Brian Inbody. He's been a great colleague and friend over this last year to me, being a first-time president, providing me good advice. We developed a great relationship. I had a wonderful dinner last night talking about the first year and just all the great things that are going on in our respective institutions. So Brian, as you may have read on the bio, has been president in Neosho County Community College since 2010. He moved back to, well, actually to Kansas in 2003, spent some time in Michigan, Southwestern Community College, so he had some years in Michigan. Originally from Oklahoma, super great person, and so without further ado, I'm just going to let him rock and roll, and please enjoy, and he'll be going for about an hour or so. So everyone, please give a Seward County welcome to Brian.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. It's great to be here in liberal Kansas. I learned a great deal even on my drive here. Kansas is a lot longer than you think that it is when you live in Chanute. It's about 5.5 hours. I guess I'm not from Kansas originally, but I married a Kansas girl, so that makes it, I'm qualified, no? To be from here. Yes, I married a girl from Fredonia, Kansas. Does anyone know where Fredonia is? Yes, Twin Mounds there in Kansas. We actually, I was living in Miami, Oklahoma at the time. I pronounce it correctly. It is not Miami. It's Miami. And we were dating. My mother introduced us. She never lets us forget that. And anyways, we dated, and so we actually dated in Fredonia for a little bit. She was with her family sometimes, and then living in Oklahoma sometimes. And so I went up there, and she took me to the movie theater in Fredonia, Kansas. The movie theater, this is a little slice of small town Kansas life for you. It was owned by the mayor of Fredonia, and before the movie, he would come on stage and talk before every movie. Hi, welcome to the movie tonight, and there's going to be a new stop sign over on this corner, and I'll let you know about that. And tonight we're going to watch A River Runs Through It. Robert Redford had something to do with it, but you will not see him in the picture. It's a pretty good movie. The loud parts are really loud, and the soft parts are really soft. And it's kind of shocked when the brother dies at the end, but I think you'll enjoy it. That's a true story. He later absconded with city funds and an internet girlfriend. I should talk. I came from Collinsville, Oklahoma, where the police chief was arrested for stealing drugs out of the evidence locker to give to a prostitute, and the fire department burned to the ground. For all you fans of irony out there. So I don't have any room to talk. But no, it's been great living here in Kansas for the last 14 years or so. It's been, I've learned a lot about this way of life. But I'm here to talk to you about something that's really important to me as a supervisor, as a college president, but you know, as a person. And that is happiness. Happiness, right? The thing we're all supposed to be pursuing, right? Isn't the Declaration of Independence gives us the right to pursue happiness. It doesn't guarantee happiness. And I'm here to tell you that some of us are pursuing it in the wrong direction. That we're kind of running, and it's almost, for you fans of irony, we're going to be talking about that later on. That column bothers me. And I know some of you chose that seat so I can answer emails and listen at the same time and not be rude. That's my philosophy at the KBOR meeting. I sit on the back row and do this a lot. Anyways, that's okay. So happiness. So why study this? Why look at it? What's so important about it? Well, the science of why. Well, first, why? Because happy employees come to work. Unhappy employees use every sick day you give them, and typically on Mondays. It's amazing how illness occurs a lot for some employee on Monday. It's shocking, really. But you know, So a lot less missed time, a lot less turnover. Turnover is one of the biggest problems that we face as community colleges, especially underfunded ones, where we don't have a lot of money and someone can make a couple of bucks more per hour and they leave you, and then you spend a lot of time looking for someone, training the replacement, putting up with the replacement's mistakes until they learn the job, everyone around them having to pick up that. It's a very, very, very expensive notion. Some say it's the cost of double that person's salary to replace them. Not just talking about in ads and stuff like that, just in the loss of productivity and the mistakes that they make, you know. Oh, like for instance, our new accounts receivable person didn't bother to check the file before they sent it out to, we have a group that checks all of the loan amounts for us, right? It's something we have to do. And they're supposed to only send the people who had loans, and we have to pay per person we sent them. They sent the entire student file instead of the ones with loans. So instead of having to pay for the 250 student loans, I had to pay for 3,200 checks of that student account. So that's the kind of mistake that cost me a little bit of money and happened because we had a new person. Now we always track that up to, well, that cost me a lot of money. That's what it costs to train them sometimes, right? And are you going to fire me? No, I just spent $15,000 training you never to make that mistake again. Right? So why would I fire you? Honest mistake and all that, but you know, that's the way it goes. Right, so we're going to try to understand the science of happiness. We're going to try to create an environment. How can you, as a supervisor or in your classroom, create a happier environment? So we're going to talk about some methods to do that. And then for you personally, how can I be more happy? Can I be a more happy person? Let's find out. Right, so for years, the psychology, now first of all, a caveat, I am not a psychologist. My degrees are in broadcasting. That's true. I taught broadcasting for 9 years at NEO A&M College in Miami. And then I wanted to become an administrator because of all the power and money that you get. Woo, power and money! And then once they removed my soul, it was so easy. Without a conscience, it's so easy to be an administrator. But anyways, kid knows. Goat's blood is hard to come by. You can get it, but you do a little ceremony and little candles, and then you're on. But no, anyways, so I'm not a psychologist, okay? My degrees are in broadcasting and education. And so I am not even talented amateur on this. What I've done is I've been very interested in this topic, read a bunch of books about it, and try to apply that to my workplace. And I feel my college is a very happy college, and it's resulted in some really great effects. NCCC is one of the Aspen Prize folks in the top 150 in the country. We're very excited about that. Recently, Smart Asset named us the 9th best community colleges in the country from our outcomes. Every year, the Kansas Board of Regents ranks all the institutions by something called the Student Success Index, and that's the students that either graduate or successfully transfer on. And since they created the index, Neosho County has been #1 among the 19 community colleges for that. And so I'm very proud of what we've accomplished at the college. It's always not been that way. Those of you may been around for a while know that we were on probation when I came. We'll talk more about that as we go through here. It's awesome to be on probation. We had $50,000 left in the bank and we couldn't make payroll. We had to do something called no funds warrants. You ever heard of that before? Super awesome. That's when you send a new tax bill in the middle of the year to all your taxpayers in the county saying, we need more of your money. Here's a new bill. There were calls to close the college, obviously. And so when I arrived in 2003, we had 10 months. When you're on probation, you have 2 years to clean the place up. In year 1, nothing happened. In year 2, they hired Vicki Smith, president. She hired me. I had 10 months to get them ready for the visit. Hardest time in my life, but I'll talk more about that later too. So, but I'm not a psychologist, so if those who teach psychology may go, this guy is full of crap, and that's fine. fine. I'm just going to tell you what I learned. Only recently, though, has psychology began to study happiness. They've been studying depression for a very long time. People do not walk into their psychologist's office and go, "Hey, I am just super happy. Can you, at $300 an hour, tell me why?" Right? Because people come to the doctor when they're sick. We don't come to the doctor when we're healthy and say, "Why am I healthy?" Only about 20 years have they spent really studying why one person is happier than the other. So we're going to talk about that and the psychology of that as we move through here. All right, so what have they learned so far? What is happiness not correlated with, right? Money. Richer people are happier than poorer people. True or false? You're right. Past a certain point. If you don't know where your next meal's coming from, of course you're not happy, right? But it looks to be about average home income, not person income, but a household income of about $50,000 or more. If your home income is $50,000 or more, there's no correlation between money and happiness, okay? And in fact, at higher levels, there's a negative correlation between money and happiness. As the poet once said, "Mo money, mo problems." Right? Did he just quote Biggie Smalls? Yes, he did. Right? Because with more money comes more responsibility, becomes more people wanting your money, becomes lawsuit time, all kinds of stuff that go along with having a lot of money. And something else we'll talk about in a second that happens with more money. So beauty. Pretty people are happier than ugly people. Is that true? Ask the plastic surgeons of the world what they think about that. There's a reason when someone comes and says, "Here, take 10 grand or 20 grand of my money and cut into my face," because they're usually not happy, and they think that will make them more happy, right? I want you to inject some poison into my eyebrows and to get rid of. Why would you do that? They're unhappy with the way they look. They want to continue to be beautiful, especially the baby boomers starting to age, and they're not happy with it. Beauty was a big part of the baby boomers, 60s. They're suffering now from that kind of thing. So pretty people are typically not as happy as normal people are, they say. Materialism. People with more stuff are happier than people without all that stuff. True or false? They're not happier. In fact, some people struggle with that. We'll talk about that. Youth. Young people are happier than old people. Get off my lawn, right? Right? Because they're happy, they skip and have a great time. True or false? Just the opposite. Who commits suicide, right? Young people, so unhappy that they can't see a way out of that, right? Old people tend to be, "I love my grandkids," and life is much better for them. But for young people, our students, typically a very unhappy group of people. So you think, oh, they're young, they're healthy. No. Married people are always happier than unmarried people. Probably some couples in this room. Married couples in the ocean. Don't talk about that. Right. What's the divorce rate in this country? It's pretty high. And the people who stay together, who maybe should get divorced, but for religious reasons or just because they don't want to be lonely, they stay together anyway. So marriage is not, there's nothing in the data to suggest that people who are married are happier than people. How about kids? Everyone knows that with children comes happiness, right? I have teenagers in my house. I can tell you that's not true. You never know what's going to happen with the kids, do you? They could turn out wonderful and sweet and fantastic, or you get to visit them every other Wednesday at the penitentiary. You don't know what's going to happen, right? And so they can bring you a lot of pain and grief as well as fun and excitement, right? And how about the situation? You break your leg, you do whatever. That's going to affect your happiness? Yeah, but only moderately. We're going to talk about that here in a second. So the situation of the moment does affect your happiness, but it doesn't last very long in most cases. Okay, so what is correlated with happiness? What do happy people do that unhappy people don't? right? They devote a great deal of time to friends and family, right? They spend most of their time not at work. They don't think about that. They think about their friends and family and being with them. We're going to talk about that too. They express gratitude regularly. They're big on saying thank you. They're big on being grateful for what they have as opposed to what they don't have. Right? So we're going to talk about that. They offer help to others often. You know that guy in town that has a truck and he spends every weekend moving someone, right? I think, wow, that guy never has a Saturday. He's always moving. That sounds terrible. I'll bet you he's happier than you are because he gets a great deal of satisfaction in helping people. And that's what he does with his time. He helps. Right? They're optimistic about the future. Happy people do not fixate on 24-hour news cycle, right? And watch Fox or CNN or MSNBC and say, wow, the world really sucks. Right? They don't. Happy people, they'll pay attention to that. They might be aware of what's going on in public events, but they're not fixated on it. They're not saying, you know, that flesh-eating bacteria is going to kill everyone someday. Right? It's always something. It's the bird flu, it's the flesh-eating bacteria, it's Zika, it's Ebola, it's right, and that's how they get ratings, by scaring you. I know, because I worked in that industry. And so you watch it enough, you think that everything's going to come to an end. Right? So that you're feeding that. Right? They savor life's pleasure and they live in the moment. I'm a planner. I always like to say, what's next? What's next? What's next? Happier people don't say what's next or live in the past. They're about right now. Where I am right now. Let's go for a walk. Let's go experience something today. Let's go do something. They're in the moment, more so than people like me. Okay, here's the one that's hard for me. Exercise regularly. Happy people, people who have a higher happiness index than most, are the people who spend about 20 minutes a day, not forever, exercising, right? And so that's good, right? I have one of these watches that now measures how many steps I take, and so for the first week I had it, I didn't change my behavior. I just wanted to see how many steps I took in a day. I'm a college president. What do I spend my time doing? Sitting in meetings, sitting in the car, driving to Topeka, sitting. I think I average 3,000 steps a day, not very many. So they want 10,000. You only measure the things you care about, right? You really care about something, you typically measure it. So if you care about it, measure it. So I'm now measuring my steps and walk. I got a headset phone at work, you know, it's wireless headset. So now I walk around, it drives my assistant crazy because I'm doing this number, and all she could see is the little window on my door, you know, and so I go by. As I'm on the phone, I'm talking to Ken, going, Ken, that's never going to work, So there you go. Exercise regularly. Try to figure out ways in your life to do that. Are deeply committed to lifelong goals and things larger than themselves. We're going to talk about that as we move through here as well. They care about the world, or their community, or their family. They're devoted to that, not who? Themselves. They're not devoted to themselves and their own happiness. They're devoted to you and your happiness, right? Or your family's happiness, or your community's happiness. And they're happy by reflective property there. And the bad things happen to them just like everybody else, but they handle it better. They handle it better because they know it's temporary. They're going to get past it. All right. There's two schools of thought about happiness, right? First of all thought, it's genetic. You're born with a happiness index, right? Somewhere on this scale from Eeyore, and you work with them, not here, at your last job, because everyone here is awesome. But you know who they are. They derive their happiness by making you unhappy, right? We also call them toxic people. Life here sucks. What's the point, right? They're there. And then over here is the, isn't the life great? I did my house caught on fire. I'm getting a new house. It's awesome. You know, that kind of stuff. right? And then everyone is somewhere on this scale, right? And that's your natural happiness index. And although something good might happen for a day or two, but pretty soon you drift back down to where you are naturally, right? And so what one scientist said, we can no more make ourselves happy than we can get taller. That sounds pretty sad, isn't it? What's the point of this session then? Congratulations, you're miserable, and you'll always be miserable. Guess what? That researcher later recanted that and said, okay, maybe the new research is showing me there is ways to move your level up a little bit. But it is true that you're born with some of it. Okay, the other school of thought is something like this. About 50% of who we are is genetic. But 40% is your behavior, something you control. Situation, typically can't control that. Sometimes, but not always, right? But your behavior makes up about 40% of your happiness. So there are things you can do to make yourself happy or to create an environment that's happier than the one that's currently there. Okay? Isn't that nice to hear? It's not just you're born with it. All right? Here's some problems, though, with the happiness. It's something called hedonistic adaptation. Okay? And that is, life is pain, you just get used to it, right? Both bad things and good things you get used to, and that becomes your normal, right? How many, for instance, how many miles did you have to walk to get to work today? Probably not very many, right? I saw many cars parked out there, right? So same thing for me. But if we lived in a third world country and we had to walk 2.5 miles to school every day, that's just life. Do they complain about it? No, it's just normal. If I said, you have to turn your car in and you need to walk, what? Well, you know, we don't like cars anymore, so you need to walk. That would be bad. That's like leaving, you know, something, you know, you're working in a room and then someone walks in and goes, woo, wee, what's that stench? You didn't notice it because you've been in there, right? That's just, something, right? You didn't notice it. So that's a good, and the good feeling is the same way. That, hey, I got a new car. It's so awesome. 6 months later, it's a car. Right? And get you from place to place, but you have a car payment now, which also affects your happiness level. So that's you get used to that. So if you're rich and you're used to staying at the nicest hotels and always eating the best meals, it's very difficult for them to impress you anymore, right? Because that's your normal. That's just how life is for you. You know, for us to go, hey, we're going to stay in the Ritz-Carlton and we're going to have our own concierge and butler on our floor, we go, that's super cool, you know? But if that's every day, it's just every day, and it doesn't make you happy anymore. It's just your normal life. We get used to the life we have. Remember we had big old tube TVs that were like 22 inches, and that's awesome. And then pretty soon it was just a TV, and then, oh, flat screen, that's this big, great. And then it's just a TV. And then, oh, 4K flat screen TV. Okay, I got 4K. And then, you know, 3 months later, it's just a TV. And then, oh, I was rounded 4K flat screen. Ooh, and then it's just a TV. Right? You just get used to it. It becomes your normal. I went to a play once in San Francisco, and a buddy of mine actually ran theater. And he said, I'll get you free tickets. And I said, cool. So we went to see Mamma Mia in San Francisco. And we got there, and I said, hi, I'm Brian Embody here to pick up our tickets. And that guy goes, oh, yes, sir. And this person came over and said, yes, Mr. Embody, please come with me. And they took us to a private room with wine and cheese and all this stuff. And he had a beautiful view of San Francisco, and there's 2 other people. Now, this was a matinee, and I said, what do you wear? And he said, whatever you want. And so I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt. And there's a guy, I'm not kidding you, in a tuxedo. They were with us. They're having their wine and cheese as well. And then I said, what's going on? And so this guy comes over, I'm your personal usher for the evening. And when the show starts, I need you to follow me. And then when the show goes dark at the end of Act 1, I'll be standing at the end of the row. Please push past whoever you need to, and we're going to bring you back to the room. And I said, okay. And so the show started. They said, come with me now, Mr. Embody. I said, okay. And so we followed them down. We were at 5th row center, you know, and they set us, and all I heard was, who is that? Who is that? So we sat down, and the play started. They were waiting on us to be seated to start the play. Okay? And then Act 1 ends, and there's a dude standing at the end. He said, and so I pushed old ladies out of the way. Let's go! Drinking my wine, eating my cheese, you know, looking out at beautiful San Francisco. And they said, Dr. Money. I said, okay, yeah. And then so, sit down, we do Act 2. So it was pretty darn cool, all right? Now, the dude in the tuxedo is thinking, another day at the play, right? Because he'd done this about 1 billion times. And so I said, you didn't have to give us those seats. And he said, I know, but it was awesome. What's your face? So, could you, is that awesome? Could you get used to that kind of treatment? Absolutely you can, but pretty soon, it's just going to the play, right? Because that's just how you go. You can't fault them for living the life that they live, right? It's just who they are, right? The people who live that. So we get used to it. So it no longer it made me incredibly happy. But that guy was just nice play, right? Because so it's hard, right? What the lottery winner said, happiness is hard work, right? Even if you have nearly unlimited resources, it won't keep you happy because you'll get used to it. Then you'll get used to it. Then you'll get used to it, right? You can't out-impress yourself after a while. That's kind of sad in some ways, isn't it? So what you have to look for happiness is not in making yourself happy, but in other people, right? So there we go. Here's some negatively ways. Let's talk about negative first. Negative ways to affect your happiness. If you lose your job, it typically, what the science says, is about 6 months. Your happiness level will fall out of its natural state for about 6 months and then come back up. You'll get used to life as an unemployed person or whatever, or at your new job or whatever it happens to be. You'll get used to that. The loss of a limb is typically 3 years before you adapt to that and your happiness comes back up. Loss of your spouse, unless you hated them, in which case it'll take about a day. But if you love them, 5 to 8 years before your happiness level comes back to where it was before on its own. So we invest a lot in our spouses, don't we? And so that's a big deal, right? As I tell my children about, because they're wanting to date now, and I said, hey, don't date. Every relationship with a guy is going to end in either breakup or marriage, and every marriage ends in either divorce or death. So it's going to be bad no matter how you do it. They didn't buy that, because they like boys. So there you go. Right? So it will return to type. But here's really something very interesting that science has shown us. People who've had a large negative event, like becoming a paraplegic or a POW, actually respond that after the event is over and that they've adapted, their happiness set level went up. And their natural happiness set level is higher than yours or mine. Why is that? Because they live in the moment. They appreciate, they have gratitude for every day. They understand what life was like a POW, and they don't want to go back again, but they appreciate what they have. Have you ever heard the phrase, travel broadens the mind? I suggest you travel to other countries that maybe don't have it as good as we have it, and maybe you'll have a little more appreciation for, I don't know, clean water. Things like that. And that makes you appreciate what you have. It'll raise your happiness level, because when you flipped on the switch for power, it came on. Where some countries, it only comes on about 8 hours a day. Or less than that, right? So it makes you appreciate what you have a little bit more. Small effects, small things are terrible. They have a cumulative effect over time. There's a study about traffic jams and heart attacks. Something like 60% of men between the ages of 40 and 60 that had a heart attack said that they were in a traffic jam within an hour and a half of the cardiac event. So traffic jams really bother people, and they get their blood pressure up, and it kills them. Good to live in Liberal, where you don't have a whole lot of traffic jams, right? Or in Chanute. Car won't start, taking your teenager angst. That has a huge effect, then worse, because large events are usually temporary, right? So that it happens, your spouse dies, you adapt to it, you get over it, but the small things happen every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, and they hurt you over time. The worst thing you could possibly do to affect your happiness is prolonged isolation. Living alone with no friends is bad. Letting your teenager sit in his or her room playing video games all day by themselves with no friends, and that's bad. When your parents retire and they don't get out and meet people, and they don't go out to the senior center or that sort of thing, that's bad. It will affect their happiness over time. You've got to be around people. You've got to be part of something. You've got to experience things, or it will tear you down after a while. Okay? The hermit effect, right? Don't do that. All right. Areas that happy people excel in that others don't, right? They do seek pleasure. They say, hey, let's go do something fun today. But it lasts the least amount of time and they invest in their own pleasure, okay? They, engagement, they're always around people and they always want to help people, right? So what can we do to help? I'm here to help. That's a big part of it. They have meaning, something larger than themselves in their lives. They're part of a cause. Now, luckily, we work in community colleges, right, for this. If we made toaster ovens, it would be a little bit harder. I'm going to make the best darn toaster oven ever, and it's going to change the world. Okay, just make toast. But what do? We change people's lives every day. We combat poverty every day, right? We have 3,000 students at Neosho, and I say we have 3,000 opportunities to change the world. Right? Because we have those students who leave us and go on and do fantastic things. We have that mom of two who's on assistance, who just signed up for the nursing program. And in 2 years, she's going to make $40,000, $45,000 a year as a nurse. And she's going to be office assistant, become a good taxpayer. And studies show that if she goes to school, those two kids are going to go to school. So now you've broken the cycle and the generational poverty for that family. Right? And you did that. That's one of those 3,000 stories. Right? Of the thing that you did to make the world a better place. And I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat or whatever, you gotta like that. Making a difference in someone's life. Getting someone off assistance. Giving them pride in having a job. Right? That's pretty cool about what we do every day. And so you are part of something big. Something that makes a real difference. And happy people delude themselves. Right? They're not wised up like you and me about the world sucks. No. They say, it's great, Disneyland everywhere, right? And that's cool. They believe in themselves and the world, maybe a little bit more than they should. Optimism, a must. If you want to be happier, get away from the 24-hour news stations. Get away from things like that. Don't immerse yourself in negativity. And look for the happy in the world. Okay, happiness is contagious. So, there's a small New England community that for the last 40 years, they've been doing a study on heart disease and how it travels around. Is it the society? Is that community affecting? Is it just genetics, or is it the environment? What is it? And so part of that heart disease study was a mood study, right? They asked them, how does mood affect your heart? So there's a great deal of data that they can dig into to see how mood changes, right, over time. And what they found was that happiness is a virus that can travel from person to person, right? So if you are happy, suddenly get happy, like you got a new job, or you just helped your kid do something, or you just helped a student do something and it made you super happy, right? Then the people around you have a 15% chance of being happy, or better chance of being happy. Right? And then friends of a friend. You didn't even know that first person, so a friend of a friend. Just being around you being happier makes them happier. They had a 10% chance of being happier, right? It took 4 degrees of separation. All right, not quite the Kevin Bacon game, but 4 degrees of separation. A friend of a friend of a friend of a friend before the happiness went away. Isn't that cool? Surrounding yourself with happy people will make you happier. Conversely, surrounding yourself with negative people will make you not as happy, right? So you make that choice of who you hang around, and if Gloomy Gus or Debbie Downer is one of your friends that you have lunch with every day, and they're always talking about, I just hate everything. This college sucks. The students suck. Everything sucks. Then thank you, Debbie. It's harder to be happy around her, isn't it? Right? So you made that choice to have lunch with her, and she made the choice of making you miserable. So keep that in mind, right? But it's kind of cool. Happiness can spread like a disease. Can happiness make you high? And the answer is yes. Happiness can, if you're happy enough, you can release dopamine in the brain. They've actually done studies with this using monks that can actually just sit down and meditate on the concept of gratitude. Gratitude, being thankful for what they have, right? And they can release this dopamine. One of these monks was a PhD in physics. Not a monk living up on a hilltop somewhere, but an academic like us. And they were able to do it just by thinking about gratitude, the concept. Isn't that cool? So gratitude and happiness are directly related. You see that? Isn't that cool? All right. What do you think of the industrialized nations? I'm not talking about the countries that struggle with clean water and it has a coup every other week. But the industrialized nations, what do you think is the least happy country on earth? Anyone take a guess? The United States? No. Not the United States. China? No. France? France? La la, man. France is awesome. They have a real, let's not work this summer. Let's just not work. And the food and the wine, French know how to live. No, but France is very happy. Japan. Who said Japan? Bingo. The least happy country on earth is Japan. Why? Because in Japan, work is first. You devote yourself to your job. It's where your honor comes from. Okay? It's much more important than family. So there's a great documentary, if you have the Netflix, you might want to look it up. It's called Happiness. And in that documentary, it focused on a young man about 28 who had a wife and a small child. He was the head of, not head, but a part of the quality control aspect of Toyota. Do you remember a few years ago they were recalling Toyotas left and right? The Prius wouldn't stop. little things like that. And so this guy was in charge of that aspect of one of the lines. And they showed a home video of him coming home, and he sits down, and his little daughter comes over. She's about 2, and in subtitles, the wife said, "Don't worry, she'll remember you. She'll remember you." He had been gone for so long that the 2-year-old didn't know who he was anymore. And he looked pretty bad, ragged, And then a few weeks later, he was on the floor on the phone with his boss. And he basically told his boss, "Look, we can't do what you're asking us to do. I've got to have more personnel and I've got to have more money. I just cannot do what you're asking me to do." His boss said, basically, "You've dishonored this company. You have failed me. You have failed all of us. And you're a disgrace." He hangs up the phone and he fell over dead. He did not have an aneurysm. He did not have a heart attack. He just died. They have a word for it, karaoshi, which means working yourself to death. They have telethons for this, like we have the muscular dystrophy telethon. They have it for working yourself to death. It's such a problem over there. So what's the story there? Devoting yourself to work is fine. Devoting yourself to friends and family and causes that mean something is a little bit more, right? Because there's nothing there. A toaster oven is a toaster oven. But your friends and family making a difference in someone's life, that means more. Okay? So what do you think the happiest country on earth? If Japan is the least happy country, who is the happiest?
Sweden.
Sweden? Denmark, those guys, that's right. Denmark. Have you ever been to Denmark past, let's say, October? It's snowy here, and they don't have sunlight. But yeah, they're the happiest country by the studies that they do. And why is that? They take care of each other. They have incredible social programs where free college and fantastic health care for everyone. And they have taken care of old people. They believe in that. They also have something called communal living, in which families will families that aren't related will move together into like a cul-de-sac, and they'll actually have hallways built between the houses, and they'll have a common room for everyone in the in the cul-de-sac, and they'll take care of each other. Like one night a week, each family will be responsible for cooking dinner for everyone. And you come in, and there'll be, the tables and chairs set up, and someone will feed you. And then next Thursday, it's your turn, and you cook for everybody. And when someone's house needs a roof repair, we all pitch in and do that. And the kids pretty much have 20 siblings, or at least cousins, right? Because they're running around sleeping in each other's houses, you know what I'm saying? It's one big giant family that takes care of each other, and they're all kind of involved in each other's lives, and they all support each other. It's pretty awesome. In some ways, right? They also have incredibly high taxes for all these social programs. I don't like that high taxes, right? But they're happier than you are, so keep that in mind. So anyways, taking care of each other. See the thing? Work versus people. There you go. Right. So can money buy you happiness? The answer to that question is yeah, right? If it's spent right, yes, right? So if you use your money to buy yourself new stuff all the time, that won't work. Remember hedonistic adaptation? You'll just get used to it. The effect will last a little while, and then it goes away. Right? It doesn't change the fact that I do it too. I like a new car. I'll admit that. Every 4 years or so, I just want a new car. That's just who I am. It's bad. I know it's a bad habit, but I do it, right? Overall, it's better to use your money to, like, for instance, take your family on a vacation. Invite your extended family along. We're all going. In our place, it's Branson. Let's all go to Branson, or whatever, right? Having that experience with your family, those memories will mean a lot more to you and affect your happiness longer than buying yourself something and the effect goes away. Or use it for your causes, right? Use it for something you care about. Habitat for Humanity, Relay for Life, scholarships at Seward, all kinds of things you think are making a difference in the world. Typically make you happy, right? It only affects you a short amount of time. So, I'm not saying don't ever buy anything for yourself. No, I'm just saying that it might be good for you to give more of your money and you'll get the better feeling from that. Like we do lots of stuff in our place, Angel Tree and stuff like that. And I always feel good about doing stuff. And taught that to my daughter, so. Okay, how can you personally raise your happiness level? You personally. All right, first, keep a gratitude journal. Gratitude, 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 gratitude. Did you hear what I said about that? Gratitude. So write down the things you're happy about, that you're grateful for, right? 20 minutes a week writing something you're grateful for. Do 5 acts of kindness in a single day, especially, and that effect raises the happiness level for 1 to 2 months, the science says. We used to do something called Hearts and Hammers, in which about 300 people would come together. We had a list of old people in town or people who have disabilities, whatnot, have difficulty keeping up their houses, and the local hardware store would donate material, and then we would divide up in groups of 10 or 15 or 20, and we would descend on these houses, and we'd paint them, we'd fix up the porch, or whatever needed to be done, help them re-roof or whatever. Why did we do that? That was our Saturday, man, and it wasn't our house. We did it because of the feeling that it gave us when it was over with. It was the right thing to do, and we felt we could drive by that house saying, I helped paint that, right? We do it with our, at Neosho, we have a number of student hours that are required, especially in our athletic teams. They have to do so many hours per team each year of community support. And getting out there and helping. I do it to get the students out of campus and out in the community helping people, but I also do it because those students have a great time doing that, and they tell us later that was the most meaningful thing they did. when they were in school, not learning algebra, no offense, algebra teachers, but the time that they painted the Faith House and helped out there. Because they're part of the college experience. So get them out, do something of kindness, and it raises the happiness level. Write a letter and visit someone you're grateful to, right? Last 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months. If you say, bring them that letter, so I just want you to read this. Have you discovered something called Facebook? Facebook. I have discovered this and went on there, and some of my old students from Miami found me, which is great. And one of them wrote me a message about, I don't know if you remember, but I was messing around and being an idiot in college, and you pulled me in and said, I'm about to break my foot off in your bottom if you don't straighten up and realize what you got. And I said, I don't remember saying that at all. And you kind of shook me and said, you're gonna clean this up, and you're gonna graduate, and you're gonna do great things. And he said, I attribute that conversation to why I'm a graduate today, and now I have this and I have that, and I'm in this media company, and I just want to say thank you to you for what you did for me. Now, how did I feel as I read that article, right, or that letter? I felt like $1,000,000, right, because of what they did. But the study said he felt even better than I did in writing it. Okay, so do that. Write a letter, say thank you. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. Conduct your own happiness inventory. And remember, you only care about the things you measure, right? So conduct your own happiness inventory. Go to Google, type in happiness inventory, and you'll get like 20 of them. Many of them are very, very good. So try it out and see where they say your happiness level is, and say, okay, I'm going to raise that. I'm going to keep a gratitude journal. I'm going to go and talk to someone, that kind of stuff. Okay, here's the hard one. Avoid social comparison. Okay, keeping up with the Joneses and all that kind of stuff. I know it's human nature to say, why don't they have what I have? I see people, I make a pretty good living. I'm a college president. My wife is a middle school counselor, and together we make a pretty good living. And then I see other people that have so much more than I do. I'm thinking, how is that possible? Because I know they're getting debt, I guess. I don't know. Someone died, left them the money. I don't know. But you can't compare your life that way because it'll bring you down. But one way you can compare yourself, in social comparison, is how you have clean water, how you have something that other people don't. I'm a peer reviewer for the Higher Learning Commission. In fact, I'm a special visits peer reviewer. You ever heard of those? Those are the ones that go to colleges that are in really deep trouble, about to go on or come off probation. If they made the cover of the Chronicle of Higher Education, I'm the one they send. I've been on some pretty nasty visits, but I've also been all around the region at different colleges. And when you think you have it rough, come with me to a Native American serving institution on the reservation. And then you'll come back and find your IT people and hug them and say thank you, thank you, thank you. I went to one that had 4 computers on campus that had internet access. 4 for their students. None of this projector in every room or whenever you want one thing. No, we have like 4 projectors on the roll-around cart, and you can't hardly get that. No Wi-Fi. That. And so just stuff like that, you go, wow, I have it like really, really good. Still doing paper enrollments and stuff like that. And you know what? That college was so needed. The literacy level at that reservation was around 60%, which means 40% could not read. So where in the world do you want a community college? Right there on the reservation, trying to combat that. Rampant alcoholism, all kinds of problems, rampant poverty. Where do you want a community college? Right there. And they had nothing. They had no casino that funded the school or anything like that. They were making on what they could. So you come back home and you hug your facilities and grounds person and say, thank you. Thank you for making it look nice around here, right? It makes you appreciate what you have a little bit more. So that kind of social comparison does raise your happiness a little because it raises your gratitude. Okay, with me so far? Right, commit to your goals. Have some goals in your life. You have probably a strategic plan here. It says over the next 5 years or so we're going to do this. We've dropped all the dates off of our strategic plan into whenever Kansas gets its act straight. We're going to be doing this, right? As soon as we get a new governor, we're going to it's really sad because we had all these plans and now they're all in the toilet. They're still there, and in the right rich people die, we'll be in good shape. It's all about, that's bequests, mind you. We used to, when my development person fails to meet her, she has a goal that she would meet, and I say, hey, why didn't you meet your goal this year? What happened? She said, FTD. And I said, FTD? Yeah, failure to die. I got a lot of money in bequests that didn't die yet. And I said, okay. But anyway, it's remove your soul, it's all clear. Right, so commit to your, but do you have goals? Do you see, what are you going to be doing 5 and 10 years from now? Am I going to be out of debt? Am I going to be helping form organizations? Am I going to, so figure out your own goals and write them down. We used to have a goal chart at our house, and we checked things off as we did it. And see your work as a calling and not a job. You see that this is a, if at 4:59 when they come by your office, they see a spinning desk chair because you're already out the door. You're watching the clock going, God, when is this guy going to finish talking? When am I out of here? You're probably not seeing this as a calling. You're probably seeing this as a job. And those people aren't as happy as the people who say, I'm part of something big. So one of the happiest places in the country to work that these scientists found was at a hospital. And it's easy to see why doctors and nurses know what they're doing and why. They're helping people get better, right? They're making a difference in people's lives. But they interviewed the maintenance staff and the custodians. Now, custodian at a hospital is a really, I would say, crabby job, and that's almost literal, of what they have to put up with and clean up every day. And they talked to the maintenance person and the custodial people, and they said, well, what about working here? You seem to be very happy. And they said, right, I'm part of something here. If I don't do a good job cleaning up, staph infection can happen. And so I'm saving lives with how well I clean up these rooms, right? I'm the reason why people can leave here a little bit sooner than others. They knew what the staph infection rate was at the hospital and how they were contributing to lowering it every day. And they were part of the Don't Fall initiative that they have. That they have the hospitals. They have a big problem with people falling down and getting hurt while at the hospital that shouldn't be walking around. They're part of that. They help watch out for patients and whatnot. And they're part of something big, and they know it. And they're helping people get better. So I don't care where you are. At a college, say at our place, I understand that the teacher-student relationship is the center of our universe because that's where the learning occurs. Right? And when we ask students 5 years and 10 years after they graduate, what was the best part of going to college? They oftentimes don't say the bathrooms were super clean. But they do say, Dr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, she made a difference in my life. Right? And so we all know that, right? I know that as president, that the teacher-student relationship is the center of our universe. But the rest of us make that happen. Right? Without me in Topeka begging for money, please don't cut me, please don't cut me, please don't cut me. There's no money to make that relationship happen, right? And without maintenance staff to have these lights on, and the fact that the doors worked and the system worked, and the computers work today, without financial aid to give the person the resources to be in the classroom in the first place, none of that would have happened. Sorry about that. Went into sleep. So what I'm saying here is we're all part of that. Yes, there's a center of our universe. Yes, there's a relationship that's probably our most important relationship because that's where the learning occurs and that's the business that we're in. But all these other people are part of that, right? Without a tutoring service, without admissions, without the person sitting in the back doing the payroll who never sees students, who paid the people who did that, it wouldn't be possible. So you're all part of it. You're all making that happen. Yes, faculty get the glory. At graduation, it's them. The students are hugging and crying, and the person's doing payroll going, okay, great. I get that, right? But we underpay faculty, so it's okay. They get love instead of money. That's just the way it is. I totally get it. But you're part of something. You understand? No matter where you are in this organization, you are making it happen. You are fighting poverty. You are making a difference in people's lives every day. 3,000 chances every day. They say you plant a tree not for yourself, but for the next generation because they'll enjoy the shade. you're planting thousands of trees every year, and it won't take them 20 years to grow up. Sometimes it just takes them 5 to get that job, or 3 or 2 to get that job and move on and be a better citizen. Isn't that awesome? Think about this for a second. Okay, so when you look at the problems of a county or an area, they always say, well, there's health problems, and then there's incarceration problems, and then there's poverty problems, and blah, 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 blah. Guess what? Healthier people, health and what? Educational attainment are directly correlated. The higher someone's education is, the more likely they are to be healthy. How about incarceration? The more education someone has, the less likely they are to be incarcerated. How about poverty? The more education someone has, the less likely they are to be in poverty. Right? What we do combats nearly every social ill that we have. Isn't that cool? You want to make society better on a global scale? Invest in education, because it matters to every single thing that we do. And here's the bad news. We live in a representative democracy. It requires an educated populace to be able to cast a vote, right? To understand the world around them. So we're also making the country stronger. We don't make toaster ovens. We make the country better, make our community better, and we impact people on an individual basis. Oh my goodness. You picked the right area. You can go to bed tonight knowing I did something good with my day. Yeah, I fixed a lift that was broken on campus, right? But without that lift, we couldn't get the materials into the building, and without those materials, we couldn't have educated those students. You matter. You did it. You've combated poverty, incarceration, and health problems of the county simultaneously by raising someone's educational level. Isn't that cool? I'm proud to be here. I could have made a lot more money out in the workforce. When I got my broadcasting degrees, a lot of my buddies were making a lot more money than I was, but I wanted summers off. No. I did call them up like on a Wednesday at 10 a.m. going, oh, I'm just getting out of bed. How are you doing? Shut up. Because money can't buy happiness if you don't spend it in the right way anyway, right? I was making a difference every day. So anyways, so see your work as a calling and not a job. Does that help you see that as a calling, what you're doing? All right, so change your routine. This is a big part about being happier. Get out of your rut, right? Doing the same thing over and over. My wife is notorious about this. We don't go to the same vacation spot twice. Within like a 3-year period or 5-year period. We live a couple, not far from Branson, and there's people that say, we go to Branson every year. We sure don't. No, we're not going there. We're going over here. Just do something different. Always mixed up. She also has a thing about cooking. We'll have a wonderful meal, something new. Well, this is delicious. Yeah, you'll never see this again. Okay. So she likes new and different. Last night, we ate shark. It was awesome. I'd never eaten shark before, but it was very, very tasty. So do something different. Get out of your routine. Simple as taking a different route on your run or your walk, right? Take a different path to work. Oh, there's a story by Patrick Stewart. You know who Patrick Stewart is? He's an actor, Captain Picard, Professor X. Anyways, he was at a friend's house for dinner in LA, and after dinner, it's a very English thing to do, to go for a walk after dinner. Constitutional. So let's go take a walk. And he said, well, what? A walk. Let's go walk. And his friend goes, okay. And so they start walking around his neighborhood, and the friend was like, oh, well, that's pretty. I'd never seen that. And Patrick Stewart said, I realized my friend had never walked his neighborhood ever, because it's LA, you drive. And she said, we were 15 minutes into the walk when the car pulls up and it's the wife. She rolls down the window, what are you doing? Get in the car! Get in the car! Right? But he was having fun for the first time seeing his own neighborhood. That's pretty sad when we don't even know anything about it because we don't even get out. So do something different, right? Take a different route to work today. Right? Because we get into these ruts, we don't use our brains anymore. We're just on autopilot. So get off autopilot and do something different, okay? Keep it fresh. Keep it fresh. Okay, this is really cool. Flow. So here's the research has been really strong in this particular area. Sorry about that. Okay, so what is flow? Flow is when you're working on something and it's just really happening, you know, like you're cranking this thing. This thing is happening. You're cranking it. I remember working on my dissertation. I was like blocked, and I said, okay, maybe if I said it that way, yeah, that might work. And then it starts happening, and you know, and I would work like 12 hours straight just going to the bathroom, and it's happening, right? And you have this great work experience, you know. That's called flow, or it could be called in the zone, right? How do you do that? How do you create flow? Here's how you do it. Stop multitasking. Stop it. Put your phone off. Turn it off. Turn off your email client while you're working. I have a terrible habit myself. If I'm writing a report for the board, and all of a sudden, ooh, textbook problem in residence hall or whatever. Okay, what is that? Right? And I was working and things were happening. Okay, let me hang on. Right? Now, that's bad. Right? You got now your train of thought. The flow has ended. Now, what could I have done? If I turned off my email client, would that textbook problem still been there in 45 minutes when I finish writing that program? It would have. It's still been there, and they would have figured he's in another meeting, or he's on the road to Topeka, or whatever. If it's an emergency, I have a cell phone. They know to call me if it's an emergency. It wasn't. It was a textbook problem. It gets solved, right? So quit doing that. Quit doing that. Turn off your email client and do the thing that you're doing. Put your phone away. We tell our students to do this too, don't we? Right? So here's a study they did on multitasking. They had a control group. They gave an IQ test. They scored 100. Guess what? That's the average of IQ, right? That's 100. Sometimes we wonder about that with certain groups of students, but the average is 100. Then they took the control group, the experimental group, and they said same IQ test, and they had this 4 buttons with 4 colored lights. And they said, while you're taking the test, the light will come on, a yellow light. You just push the yellow button within 5 seconds and then continue with your thing, right? That's all they did. So every so often, every 30 seconds or a minute, beep, and they go, okay. And then they would go back to studying. Guess what? IQs fell by 20 points. 20 points. Can you multitask? Yes. Should you multitask? No. You're not as smart when you multitask. I can't do it with my job. Yeah, you can. I bet you can. I bet it just, we have to know, right? And that's the bad news about these fancy watches like I'm currently wearing. I can't not know it, right? And I have it set for trustee, let's be honest. When the trustees buzz, I go, yes, sir. I thought it was easy before. When I was VP, I had to keep one person happy. It was Vicki Smith, and she was hard to keep happy. But now I have 6 bosses. That's a lot to keep happy. Anyways, so do that. Put your dang cell phone away and live in the moment, and that's flow. Okay, with me so far? Try that. And see if it works, right? How do you create a good atmosphere at work? Time off to contribute to the community. So at Neosho, if you need time to, like for instance, be a watchdog dad at the elementary school, or if you want to go volunteer for Relay for Life, within reason, we don't go crazy, but within reason, absolutely go do that. No need to file it for vacation or sick leave or whatever. You're giving to the community, and it's not a critical time, so absolutely go and do that. So we like to do that. We do a lot of campus charity drives. I know we raise money for our own foundation, but we love helping out other organizations. Like for instance, we host Relay for Life on our campus. We do Angel Tree every year. We help out Tri-Valley, which is the local folks that works with folks with disabilities. We help them out quite a bit. Why? Don't our own folks need their? Absolutely. But we get such a feeling of gratitude and a big part of something big to help out and to become a tradition on campus to help out these other organizations, right? Employee to employee and student appreciation and gratitude. We appreciate our students a lot. We give them awards. We do a lot of things for them. But now at the college we have what we call service awards. And 9 times, we give out 9 awards a year, 3 different occasions, each in service, and at the end of the year, we give out 3 service awards. And what happens is we ask for them electronically for everybody, email and on social media and our alert system for the students, and we say, is there someone that made a difference in your life at Neosho? Tell us about it. Something good that's happened. And employees can nominate each other, and they have to give us why, because this person did this for me. And then we take those, and a group of employees made up of past winners of this award give it. And they say, okay, these are our winners this time. They've done some really awesome work. Then at in-service, I give them a lovely piece of lucite and $500 for doing this. And then what I do with all those nominations, I put them in a card. Actually, I don't. Denise does. And then I read every one of them, and I say, "Okay, great, fantastic job. So proud of what you've done." And I send that out to the people who were nominated. Even though they didn't win, they can at least read the nomination from the person. So what does that do? The person who nominated them feels great. Write a letter and tell them, right? So they get that wonderful feeling. The person who got the envelope feels great and I feel great because of all these wonderful things that our faculty and staff are doing to make a difference in people's lives. So something small we do, yeah, it costs money, but it's paid in itself in dividends many, many times over. And the decision is made by previous winners, not by me. And so as soon as a new group of winners come on, those others drop off. And so it's always cycling who making that decision. So that's pretty cool. So we've got a lot of mileage out of that. So help them see their job, their calling by emphasizing the emotional aspects of working there, no matter the level of the employee. That's what I was trying to do with my speech here today. Form teams and work together. So it's much better to, instead of saying, well, there are 4 parts to this problem, each one of you takes a part and we'll see you in a week. It's better for flow and other things to get those 4 people together and let's all work together on this particular aspect instead of working alone. Some people prefer to work alone, I get that. But there's a camaraderie thing that builds and is created when folks work together, and usually 2 heads are better than 1. Not always. The legislature is a perfect example. It's better when all folks work together, right? And then encourage flow in your area. Turn off the cell phones. We try to, it sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. We have 2 campuses, right? Ottawa and Chanute, and they're about, 80 miles apart. So it's difficult for us to communicate. So I do insist, when we hit about 3 emails in a chain, I say this stops. Now we have to have a meeting or call somebody, right? Stop emailing, call them, or here's a crazy idea, get up, walk over and say hi and talk to them in their office. I know it takes time, but guess what? Sitting at your desk, I saw a study on this, I don't know if it's true or not. Sitting at your desk all day is equivalent to smoking a pack a day, health-wise. I've read that. So get up. My watch tells me every hour, get up. And I try to. In the middle of the meeting, I'll say, okay, it's stand-up time, guys. And okay. And they'll stand up, just get their feet going. Okay, all right, now, and the watch says, you've done it. And then, okay, let's all sit down. Right? But do that, right? Get up and go talk to them. An email is great for conveying numbers to each other. It's terrible for nearly everything else because you can read whatever you want to into that sentence, right? And so it's better to actually speak to the person. And as the legal person said, there's no record of that. So that's also very good. So get up, out of your chair, and go talk to them. Right? There are companies that have no email Fridays. Right? You're not allowed to do it. You have to actually call them or go and speak to them. We don't do that because there's too much that the Department of Ed needs to blah, blah, blah. We don't do that. But it's something that we try to encourage as much as possible. Get out of your chair and go talk to them. All right. What is happiness? Happiness is positive relationships with other people. So here's my quick story. I'm almost out of time on it. It's not too quick. I've been reminded several times in my life, in a big way, that what really matters in life is friends and family. So I was at Neosho, and we were kicking bottom, right? We just got off probation. We were named the 16th fastest growing community college in the country. We were doing very, very well. And I was devoting a lot of time to that. As you can imagine, I was the vice president, and I was over student services and academics, over about 80% of the college. And we worked hard every day, and getting home later and later. But that's okay, because we were making a difference and blah, blah, blah. So in 2007, my daughter was 7 years old, and she started having a little bit of headaches. And just they would come and go. But they would be in the morning, which is kind of odd. You usually get a headache at the end of the day, right, when you're tired or whatever. She was having, and she's 7. 7-year-olds don't get a lot of headaches. So it happened, on and on for about 2 weeks. And finally, we decided to take her to the doctor. And the doctor watched her walk and do some other things. And then she said, "Let's get a CAT scan." And I said, "A CAT scan? That's a $2,500 test. Are you sure? She said, let's just eliminate things. So next day in the morning, we went down and had the CAT scan, and then they called and said, can you come back to the doctor's office? And I said, sure. Now, when they don't tell you what the results are on the phone, and they ask you to come in, that's a bad sign. So my wife immediately burst into tears. So we went there, and my doctor's in education. It's not in medicine, but I could read that CAT scan just fine. Because they slid it up there. She had a golf ball-sized tumor in that little 7-year-old head. The brain, you know, is symmetrical, and the tumor had pressed the brain off-center. And so what she was feeling, of course, was pressure built up in her head. So I looked at the pediatrician, and I said, is she going to make it? And she did this. Now, how did that make me feel? So she said, we're going to Children's Mercy tonight. Okay. So we jumped in the car and went to Children's Mercy in Kansas City, and we're very lucky to have that within the region here because it's an awesome hospital. And the little intern kid checked us in, and he said, why are you even here? This kid looks fine, because she was fine. She was not having a headache at the moment. And I said, why don't you go look at that CAT scan, and then, because I brought it with me. And he said, okay. And he came back and said, okay, you got the room already? And I said, okay. And I made a mistake. I turned to the intern and said, what do you think her chances are? And he said, I don't know. Let me go look it up. And then he came back and said, 33% chance to live 5 years. And now, at that point, I'm devastated. So the next morning, in walks the neurosurgeon. Now, neurosurgeons are men and women who have the ability to reach into a human brain and do stuff. They're normally pretty weird people. But here's the thing. USA Today put neurosurgery as the #1 happiest profession in the world. Why? They make a difference, and they know they're making a difference. This guy, Hornig was his name, looked exactly like Christopher Lloyd in Back to the Future. And with his wild hair, and he came barging in a room. Hi! And he had the worst bedside manner I've ever had. Any guy, and I said, so he said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to drill a hole about that big in her head, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to check it out. And I don't know if it's brain cancer or not. That'll really affect her chances of survival. But you need to know that she could become paralyzed. She could lose the ability to communicate. She could go blind. She could fall into a coma and die. I just want to let you know those are the possibilities. Great. And so he said, I want an MRI, and then we'll go do this on Friday. I said, okay. So I called the family and said, Friday, if you want to come, please come. So on Thursday, we went down for the MRI, and they rolled us into the MRI room, and that's when you really talk to God and all kinds of things. And it's a terrible, terrible noisy machine if you've ever had an MRI. And they rolled her out, and the nurse was there in full surgical garb, and she said, okay, we're going. I said, going where? To surgery right now. And I said, wait, it's tomorrow. And no, let's go. So what am I thinking? They saw something on the MRI, and now it's an emergency. So they roll her up there, I kiss her, and they roll her back into surgery. And 6 hours later, Hornig comes out and says, well, I think I got it all out, and she's awake and complaining about the catheter. And I said, can I, because he was still talking about the thing, she said, her skull was paper thin. The tumor had pressed against there to erode the skull. And I said, oh, that's very interesting. Did she have cancer? And he said, oh, maybe I should have led with that. No. Okay. I says, what's next? He said, the only treatment is removal, and you just did that. You can take her home on Sunday. So 33% chance of losing my child, so you can take her home on Sunday. What did I think about work during that time? Nothing. I didn't care. Flash forward now to 2010. Vicki Smith my boss gets a job in Illinois, and the trustees say, we want to talk to you first before we talk to anybody else, before we do a search. And I said, great. Then my daughter, now 10, couldn't use the bathroom very well. Something was going on. And they did an ultrasound. followed by an MRI, and she had an ovarian tumor the size of a quart jar in her belly. And so it could be ovarian cancer, and at that point it's so large it's probably stage 4. And I said, okay. I didn't know 10-year-olds could get ovarian cancer, and they said, oh yeah, they can. A different doctor at KU Med, and she was equally terrible because she immediately starts, because they had that blood test for cancer and it came back negative, that she didn't have it. And I said, I thought the blood test came back negative. And she said, oh no, it could be the worst kind of cancer that there is. And I said, because that doesn't show up in the blood test. I went, okay. So they do the surgery and pull out the quart jar thing, and she lost half her ovaries, but it was not cancer. And I said, is this a problem for me, this tumor thing? And she said, you want to hire a geneticist to tell you your daughter's prone to tumors? I think you already know that. And I said, okay, thank you. So anyways, I actually negotiated my first presidential contract from her hospital room. So did that help it keep it in context for me? I was at the pinnacle of my success as an educator. I had worked for this for so many years. Getting a doctorate, paying $30,000 of my own money to get a doctorate, then going off to living in Michigan for a while and being an administrator there where no one was happy, but I had needed the experience, and then working for 7 years as a vice president and clawing my way in a place. And if you're the internal candidate, every day you're interviewing for your next job, every single day, because you make one mistake, someone remembers that. You remember that time 6 years ago that he said that thing that I didn't appreciate? That comes up. So every day, so I worked my butt off for that. And did I give a crap about it at that point? I was prepared to quit immediately. If she had cancer and we needed to be close to KU Med for the cancer treatments, that was what I was going to do. So I had some pretty good moments in my life where I realized what was really important, where my happiness truly lies, and that is my friends and family and the health of my children. So now she's 16. And we still have to see the neurosurgeon. She's had 2 more brain surgeries since then because it keeps coming back, but luckily it's not cancer that spreads, it just keeps growing at the same location. And, but they think they got it all this time. We shall see. But when I was talking to the neurosurgeon, I said, hey, something new has happened. Whenever I say something like, go clean up your room, her eyes do this thing. Can you do something about that? He said, you're going to have to wait 7 to 10 years. Okay. So what I'm telling you that is gratitude. I am so appreciative of the health of my children now. And did it take a couple of scares to do that to me? Yeah, it did. And I hope that doesn't have to happen for you to be appreciative of the fact that you might have healthy children, and if they're not healthy, there are children who are less healthy than them out there, and that you have a spouse, or that you have what you have in life. There's a Sheryl Crow song, it's not what you've got, it's wanting what you have. It's absolutely, do you want what you have? Are you grateful for it? So anyways, that's my last little thing. Kindness, gratitude, and the capacity for love matter much more than the love of learning, curiosity, accomplishment, or success. If you're looking for happiness, look for relationships with other people. Look for kindness, gratitude, and the capacity for love. So that's my speech. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for listening.